My name is Allison Scanlon, and I was 26 years old when I realized, lying in an ICU bed with tubes in my arms and alarms pulsing beside my head, that my family had already chosen a vacation over my life. The room smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Everything around me beeped or hummed or clicked, machines quietly negotiating whether my body was worth the effort to keep alive. Pneumonia had turned into sepsis faster than anyone expected. One day I was exhausted and coughing. 2 days later, I was being wheeled into intensive care, while doctors spoke in careful, measured tones. "The first 72 hours are critical," one of them said. "We'll monitor closely." Critical. That word echoed long after he left. I texted my family the moment I was admitted. My mom, my dad, my younger sister Emily. They lived less than 2 hours away, close enough that I didn't even question whether they would come. Families show up in hospitals. That's just what families do, or so I thought. Instead of footsteps or worried faces, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Sorry, honey, we're already at the airport. The Hawaii trip is paid for. We'll check on you when we're back." Hawaii. I stared at the word like it was written in another language. I hadn't known about any trip. No discussion, no mention. Just a casual announcement that my parents and sister were boarding a plane while I was fighting for my life. At first, I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe they didn't realize how serious it was. Maybe once they landed, they'd turn around. They didn't. Over the next few days, my phone became a cruel slideshow of everything I wasn't part of. Emily's Instagram stories showed white beaches and poolside drinks. My mother posted a selfie in a brand new swimsuit, captioned, "Living my best life at 52. My dad uploaded photos from a golf course with hashtags like #ParadiseFound and #RetiredLife. There was no mention of me. No prayers, no family emergency. Just paradise. By the third day, my fever finally dropped enough for my thoughts to stop drifting in and out. The room felt too quiet then, too empty. Fear settled into my chest heavier than the illness itself. I texted the family group chat, "Hey, I'm stable now, but still really sick. Doctors say I'll be here at least another week. Could someone please come? I'm really scared." An hour passed. Then another. Finally, my mom replied, "Allison, stop being dramatic. You're clearly fine if you're texting. We'll come back early if you reimburse our return flights and the vacation time we'd lose." I read the message over and over, my hands shaking. I actually checked the date, half convinced I was hallucinating from the medication. Then Emily chimed in. "LOL. Mom's right. You've always loved attention. Maybe dying would finally make you interesting." That was the moment something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not shattered, just clear. I took screenshots of both messages. Not to send, not to confront, just to keep. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about Hawaii. It never had been. This was who they'd always been. I had always been the responsible one, the fixer, the safety net. I worked 2 jobs through college, lived on scholarships, and built a career in tech faster than anyone expected. By 26, I was earning a 6-figure salary as a senior software engineer. My parents retired early. Emily dropped out of community college to chase social media fame. And somehow, without ever sitting down and agreeing to it, I became their financial backbone. I paid their mortgage when my dad's retirement funds dipped, covered Emily's car payments and insurance, paid for groceries when they said things were tight. I even handed my mother $15,000 for a cosmetic surgery she called an emergency for her confidence. Family trips, holiday gifts, credit cards for emergencies. I paid for it all, including, apparently, a Hawaiian vacation they hadn't even told me about. As I lay there, weak and alone, listening to machines breathe for me, something finally clicked into place. I wasn't their daughter or sister in moments like this. I was their ATM. The next few days passed slowly. Nurses came and went. Friends stopped by when they could, bringing books, soup, and awkward smiles that tried to hide how serious everything was. Not one member of my family called. I had time. Too much time. Time to replay every moment I'd brushed off. Every joke about how lucky they were to have me. Every time my concerns were dismissed because I was strong and independent and fine. On the 6th night, long after visiting hours ended, I opened my laptop. My hands were still shaky, but my mind had never felt steadier. I logged into my bank account. The automatic transfers to my parents' account were still scheduled, quietly funneling money out of my life while I lay in a hospital bed. I canceled them. The mortgage payment due in 2 weeks? Canceled. The car payment I'd been covering? Terminated. The credit card I'd given them, just in case, reported stolen and shut down. One by one, the safety nets disappeared. I wasn't angry while I did it. I wasn't crying. I felt calm. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to them. I was choosing myself. As the screen dimmed and the room settled back into quiet, I realized something that scared me more than the sepsis ever had. If they could abandon me when I might die, they would never change. And I was done pretending otherwise. I was discharged on the 7th day. The nurse helped me into a wheelchair because my legs didn't trust me yet. I had lost 15 pounds, most of it muscle, and even standing made the room tilt slightly. Still, I smiled as the automatic doors slid open. I was weak, but I was alive. And more importantly, I was awake in ways I hadn't been before. I drove home slowly, gripping the steering wheel like it might float away. My apartment felt unfamiliar when I stepped inside, as if I were visiting someone else's life. I ordered soup from my favorite restaurant, curled up on the couch, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 6:47 p.m., my phone rang. "Allison," my mother said, her voice tight and panicked. "Something's wrong with the credit card. It was declined at dinner." I leaned back against the cushions, staring at the ceiling. "That's strange," I said calmly. "Did you call the bank?" "We did. They said the account is closed." Her tone sharpened. "Did you close it?" "I reported it stolen while I was in the ICU," I replied. "Someone was clearly using it for vacations." Silence. Then her voice exploded through the speaker. "Allison Scanlon, you reopen that card right now. We're stuck in Hawaii with no money." "I thought you paid for the trip yourselves," I said. "That's what you told me." Click. She hung up. 10 minutes later, Emily called. "You're insane," she screamed. "Do you know what you did? The hotel wants payment, and we can't even book another night." "Maybe ask your boyfriend to help," I said lightly. "The one from the couple's massage video." "You've been stalking us," she snapped. "I've been watching my family vacation while I nearly died," I answered. "There's a difference." She hung up too. My dad called next, his voice low and careful, like he could negotiate his way out of this. "Allison, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. We can explain everything when we get home. Just reinstate the card so we can book flights." "No," I said. "You chose a vacation over your daughter. Live with that choice." The calls continued all night. I turned my phone off and slept better than I had in years. They made it home somehow. I later learned my parents maxed out an old emergency card, and Emily borrowed money from a man she'd met 3 days earlier. Reality hit them hard. The morning after they returned, my mom called again, this time from a blocked number. "The power is out," she said, her voice trembling. "And the gas. What did you do?" "I canceled the utilities that were in my name," I replied. "You're adults. You can set them up yourselves." "With what money?" she shrieked. "You canceled everything." "You'll figure it out," I said. "You always do." 3 days later, the foreclosure notice arrived. The bank moved quickly once I formally removed myself from the mortgage. I had every legal right to do it, and they were surprisingly accommodating when I explained I was recovering from a life-threatening illness and needed to protect my financial future. That's when the begging began. Emily showed up at my apartment first. She cried on my doorstep, mascara streaking down her face. "Allison, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I was drunk when I sent that text. I didn't mean it." "Which text?" I asked. "The one about you dying," she said quietly. "That one," I nodded. "Get off my property." My mother came next with a full performance. Tears, trembling hands, stories about how scared she'd been and how she'd said those things because she couldn't face losing me. Then why did you post 47 vacation photos while I was in the ICU? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. Get out, I said. My dad tried logic. He brought paperwork showing how losing the house would destroy their credit. You should have thought about that before you asked me to pay for your flights while I was fighting for my life, I said. But we're family, he insisted. No, I replied. Family shows up. That was when the harassment escalated. They called me 20, 30 times a day. When I blocked their numbers, they used friends' phones, hotel landlines, unknown numbers. Each call brought a new tactic. Anger, guilt, false apologies, even threats. You're destroying this family, my mother screamed during one late-night call. You already destroyed it, I said calmly. I just stopped pretending otherwise. They tried ambushing me at work next. My parents talked their way past security and cornered me in the lobby during my lunch break. My dad looked exhausted. My mother clutched tissues like props. Allison, please, he begged, just 5 minutes. Security, I said loudly. These people are harassing me. As guards escorted them out, my mother screamed, I'm your mother. You can't just ignore us. Watch me, I said, walking away without looking back. That incident became office legend. Desperate, Emily tried one last angle, public sympathy. She posted a long Instagram story claiming I'd suffered a mental breakdown after being hospitalized and that my erratic behavior was a cry for help. She didn't expect my friends to respond. They commented with photos of hospital visits, stories of how alone I'd been, how they brought food and books while my family posted beach selfies. Her followers connected the dots fast. The post vanished within hours. By then, I had already contacted my lawyer. Harassment, stalking, defamation, he said. You've got grounds. I want a restraining order, I told him. I'm done. The hearing was set for Thursday morning. They showed up dressed like they were attending a wedding, convinced they could charm their way out. The judge listened to their version first, a story about an unstable daughter punishing them over a minor illness. Then I submitted my evidence. Screenshots, posts, call logs, workplace footage, the false report. Your Honor, I said, my voice steady, these people didn't just abandon me when I nearly died. They mocked me. And when I stopped funding their lives, they tried to destroy mine. The temporary restraining order was granted on the spot. As we exited the courtroom, my mother made one last plea. Allison, please, we can fix this as a family. You made lawyers necessary when you chose harassment over accountability, I said. 3 weeks later, the order became permanent. The silence that followed was beautiful. And that's when my life truly began to change. The restraining order didn't end my family's obsession with me. It changed its shape. They weren't allowed to call, text, email, show up, or speak about me publicly. Any violation meant immediate arrest. On paper, it was final. In reality, it was just the beginning of their unraveling. The first violation attempt came quietly. A week after the order went into effect, my lawyer forwarded me an email. It wasn't from my parents or from Emily, but from someone who clearly knew them well. A family friend I barely remembered claimed she was concerned about my mental health and wanted to check in. My lawyer smiled when he read it. They're fishing, he said, trying to see if you'll respond. You don't. I didn't. Then came the smear campaign. Because they couldn't reach me, they started rewriting the story for anyone who would listen. According to them, I hadn't nearly died. I'd been a little sick. According to them, I hadn't supported them for years. I'd been controlling. According to them, cutting them off financially wasn't self-protection. It was abuse. I found out when Adult Protective Services called me. Miss Scanlon, the social worker said carefully, we've received a report alleging financial exploitation of elderly parents. I didn't panic. I invited her over. We sat at my dining table for nearly 2 hours. I laid out everything. Bank statements, mortgage documents, transfer histories, screenshots of the Hawaii posts, the texts mocking my illness, the restraining order, the call logs. She reviewed everything silently, taking notes. "So," she said finally, closing her folder, "let me be clear. Your parents voluntarily accepted financial help. You had no legal obligation to support them. And when they chose a vacation over visiting you in the ICU, you stopped providing support." "Yes," I said. She nodded once. "That isn't elder abuse. That's boundary setting." The complaint was closed as unfounded. As she stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "what they did while you were hospitalized was unconscionable. I'm sorry." That was the first time someone in authority said the word out loud. Unconscionable. The failed report seemed to break something in my mother. Her behavior escalated into paranoia. She became convinced I was orchestrating a campaign to ruin them, that I'd turned the family against her, poisoned friends, manipulated banks, destroyed their lives out of spite. "Karma is coming for you," she screamed in a voicemail my lawyer saved but never forwarded to me. "You think you're so smart, but you'll pay for this." Karma already came, I thought. It came disguised as clarity. The worst attempt came when they tried to sabotage my relationship. I'd been dating Daniel quietly, nothing dramatic, just steady, respectful, calm. He knew about my family situation from the start. I told him everything, expecting it to scare him away. It didn't. What did scare him was the email his mother received. My mother had found her social media profile and sent a 3-page message detailing my supposed history of instability, claiming my illness had triggered paranoia and that Daniel was being manipulated by a dangerous woman. Daniel's mother forwarded it to me immediately. "We don't believe a word of this," she wrote, "but you deserve to know." That night, Daniel held my hands and said, "Allison, what you did took strength. Most people never escape families like that." That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I called my lawyer the next morning. "They're escalating," I said. "I want consequences." The court date for the permanent restraining order arrived on a gray Thursday morning. My parents and Emily showed up dressed in their best clothes, smiling nervously, still convinced charm would save them. The judge heard their version first. A carefully rehearsed story about a daughter who had a mental breakdown after a minor illness and was now punishing her family financially. Then it was my turn. I submitted everything, every post, every text, every false report, every attempt to contact me through others. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest, "they didn't just abandon me when I nearly died. They mocked me for it. And when I stopped funding their lives, they began harassing me, lying about me, and trying to destroy my reputation and relationships." The judge didn't hesitate. The restraining order was made permanent. As we exited the courthouse, my mother reached for me. "Allison, please," she begged. "We can fix this. You don't need courts." "You made courts necessary," I said. "I asked for dignity. You chose manipulation." The silence afterward was surreal. No calls. No messages, no shadow looming over my days. And into that silence, opportunity walked in. 3 months later, my supervisor called. "Allison," he said, "the client you handled last year, Axiom Systems, they want you, not as a contractor, as a vice president." The offer doubled my salary, stock options, full benefits, full autonomy. "They credit you with saving them millions during a breach last quarter," he said. "They specifically asked for you." I accepted. The timing was almost poetic. As I signed my new contract, my parents were being evicted from a motel for non-payment. Emily tried calling from a payphone. "We're homeless," she sobbed. "Mom's medication ran out. Please." "Have you considered getting full-time work?" I asked gently. She didn't answer. My first day at Axiom was everything I'd worked for. A corner office, a team that respected me, a CEO who shook my hand and said, "You didn't just save our systems, you saved jobs." That afternoon, a tech journalist requested an interview. Meanwhile, my mother launched a GoFundMe titled, "Help a Family Destroyed by Their Daughter's Mental Illness." She didn't expect my colleagues to find it. They flooded the comments with truth, with outrage, with public testimony of my integrity and competence. The page disappeared within a week, but screenshots live forever. By month 6, I was thriving, speaking at conferences, leading teams, sleeping through the night without fear, and I felt nothing for my family. No satisfaction, no guilt, just distance. They were strangers now. People I used to know. By the time a year had passed since the ICU, my life barely resembled the one I'd been living before. The days no longer began with anxiety or ended with dread. I woke up in a quiet apartment that felt safe. I worked with people who respected me. I laughed more, slept better, ate meals without checking my phone every 5 minutes, bracing for another crisis I was expected to fix. Success arrived quietly at first, then all at once. At Axiom Systems, I built an entire security division from the ground up. We protected major clients from breaches that would have cost millions. I hired engineers who were smarter than me and let them shine. When a trade publication asked to feature me in an article about women leading cybersecurity innovation, I almost said no out of habit, then caught myself. That reflex belonged to the old me, the one who stayed small so others could feel big. The article ran 2 months later. The photo showed me standing in my office, confident, composed, unmistakably alive. My inbox flooded with congratulations. Recruiters reached out. Former colleagues sent messages saying they were proud. My parents sent nothing. They couldn't. The restraining order was still in place. I heard about them anyway. A cousin mentioned my dad had taken a part-time job at a hardware store. My mom was working at a call center, angry at customers, angrier at the world. Emily bounced between retail jobs and half-hearted attempts to revive her influencer dream, her follower count shrinking every month. I felt no triumph hearing it, just distance. I'd learned something important. Peace doesn't feel like victory. It feels like silence. Daniel became part of my life so naturally that I barely noticed the transition. He cooked dinners with me, listened without trying to fix, and never once asked me to be the bigger person. When I finally met his family, I braced myself out of habit. Instead, his mother hugged me and said, "Any woman who survives what you did and still chooses kindness is welcome here." I cried in the bathroom afterward, not from pain, but from the shock of being accepted without conditions. We got engaged the following spring. It was small, intentional. Just us and the people who had shown up when it mattered. The wedding was even smaller. Friends who'd brought soup to the hospital, coworkers who'd defended me publicly, Daniel's family, who treated me like I'd always belonged. Emily tried to crash it. The restraining order had expired by then, and she'd apparently been watching my social media from fake accounts. Security stopped her at the entrance before she could cause a scene, but not before she screamed loud enough for guests to hear. "She was never even that sick," Emily shouted. "She's just an attention seeker." The irony settled heavily over the crowd. Daniel's mother stepped forward, placed an arm around my shoulders, and said calmly, "This woman is family here. You are not." I broke down then, not in grief or rage, but relief. I had spent so many years trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it, and suddenly I was surrounded by people who offered it freely. After the wedding, life unfolded gently. We bought a house in the hills with a view of the city lights, adopted a golden retriever named Milo, who greeted me every day like I was the most important person in the world. I hosted dinners, took cooking classes, joined a hiking group, lived. 2 years after the ICU, I ran into my father at a grocery store. He looked older, smaller. He was studying discount labels, a stack of coupons in his hand. "Allison," he said softly, "you look healthy." "I am," I replied. "Happy too." He nodded, swallowing. "I know we failed you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what we lost." It was the first real apology I'd ever received. "Thank you for saying that," I said, "but understanding doesn't undo damage." "I know," he said. "I just hope someday we can show we've learned." "Maybe someday," I answered honestly, "but not today." As I walked away, I felt something unexpected. Pity, not regret. not guilt. Just sadness for people who chose money and appearances over love. And we're now living with that choice. The last update came through a cousin a few months later. My mother had been arrested for shoplifting makeup and gourmet cheese. She'd had a meltdown in the store, screaming about how her daughter had ruined her life. The charges were dropped. The headline wasn't. I didn't read the article. I didn't need to. Today, I'm 29 years old. I'm married to a man who respects my boundaries. I have a career I love, a home that feels like sanctuary, and a dog who believes I hung the moon. I have friends who show up when I'm sick, celebrate my wins without envy, and never ask me to bleed for their comfort. Sometimes, at dusk, I sit on the veranda with Daniel and Milo and watch the city lights come on. And I remember the girl in the ICU bed, terrified, alone, reading messages that should have broken her. I think about the moment she took screenshots instead of excuses, and I smile, because she chose herself. The strangest thing about revenge is that the best kind doesn't involve destruction. It's about building a life so full that the absence of those who hurt you feels like freedom. They thought losing me wouldn't matter. They were wrong. And for the first time in my life, I know this with certainty. I deserved better.